Welcome to this explainer breaking down the European polymer market for the third week of August 2026, where we'll unpack the absolute latest real-time intelligence. Now, if you've been keeping an eye on the commodity space lately, you know exactly how unpredictable the pricing landscape has become. But this week's data provides some seriously fascinating insights into the underlying mechanics of what's really driving these shifts. All right, let's just dive right into the data. We're looking at a highly detailed report straight from Polymer Bazaar, and we're going to distill exactly what is happening on the ground for procurement managers and traders. We're going to look past all that surface level noise to figure out where the friction is, where the relief is, and how you can best navigate this current pricing environment. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to look at the overarching market paradox, touch on the supply shocks and risers, dive into the styrenics and PET squeeze, check out the fallers, specifically PVC and EVA, and finish up with the import advantage. Starting things off with Section 1, the market paradox, rising costs versus weak demand. So this is the fundamental conflict completely dominating the market right now, and honestly, it sets the stage for almost everything we'll cover today. Look, buyers just aren't buying. Demand is being called dull, weak, or sluggish pretty much across the board. But at the exact same time, we're seeing intense production issues, climbing feedstock costs, and just massive logistical hurdles. It's wild, right? This dynamic is artificially propping up prices in a market that, logically, really should be cooling off. It's a classic squeeze, where the sheer cost of doing business is overriding the basic laws of supply and demand. Moving on to Section 2, supply shocks and the risers, focusing on PP and PE variants. Here, we're looking at specific polypropylene and polyethylene variants that are actually seeing significant price hikes, despite that weak demand we just talked about. The big takeaway, supply shocks are completely overriding any buyer hesitation. For PP, both homopolymer and copolymer grades are up a massive €60 per metric ton. Why? Well, it's a mix of tight supply from production issues compounded by some serious logistical nightmares. Then you've got high-density polyethylene, both injection molding and film grades, up €30 to €40 because feedstock costs are climbing. And LDPE, that's up €30, hitting €1,210 per ton, strictly because of a plant shutdown. Plain and simple, supply constraints are dictating the terms here. Now, linear low-density polyethylene, or LLDPE, presents a slightly different picture. It's kind of a mixed bag this week. The C4 grade climbed €30 thanks to those higher feedstock costs we mentioned, but the C6 and metallocene grades, they remained completely rock solid at €1,195 and €1,200 per metric ton. It's a great reminder that even within the same polymer family, the market is definitely not monolithic. You know, nuance really matters when you're planning your procurement strategy. All right, Section 3, the styrenics and PET squeeze, where uniform pressures are driving up prices. What's super interesting here is just how uniform these market pressures are across entirely different materials. Take the broader polystyrene family, general purpose, high impact, expandable grades. They are all up exactly €20 per metric ton. And remember, demand is totally sluggish. Meanwhile, ABS is feeling intense production cost pressure, holding out €1,895, and PET is up €10. It's basically a unified front. Logistical hurdles and production costs are forcing prices up universally, even though buyers are essentially just sitting on their hands. So that brings us to a pretty critical question for anyone trying to find some actionable relief in this crazy landscape. With weak demand literally everywhere and logistics pushing almost everything up, are any prices actually dropping? Like, is there anywhere to find a discount right now? Let's answer that in Section 4, the fallers. We're looking at PVC and EVA, which are the real exceptions to the rule. The absolute sharpest movement we saw this week was a €50 per metric ton drop for polyvinyl chloride, or PVC. That brings it down to €890 on a free-delivered Northwest Europe basis. In a week totally defined by €20 to €60 hikes, seeing a €50 drop is a massive outlier. It absolutely demands our attention, especially if you're a buyer looking to optimize your spend right now. And what makes this so fascinating is the huge disconnect between the raw materials and the final product. Get this, the ethylene contract price actually rose sharply by €42.50 per metric ton. Normally, that would drag PVC right up with it. But market realities on the ground completely took over. There's just an incredibly ample supply of PVC out there right now, paired with completely dull demand. That overwhelming supply forced PVC prices down by €50 anyway, entirely ignoring the rising feedstock costs. It's a textbook supply-driven market correction.
Finally, Section 5, the import advantage and how fresh supply is easing prices.
Building on that idea of supply dictating price, let's look at how imported variants are directly impacting the market. Take EVA, or ethylene vinyl acetate. Fresh imports landing at European ports increase the available supply enough to drop prices right across the board. We're talking a uniform €10 drop. Low grade is down to €1,525, medium grade to €1,675, and high grade to €1,950. This is a perfect example of global trade acting as a release valve for those intense regional pricing pressures. The sheer volume of those fresh port landings really tipped the scales in favor of the buyer. And just look at this direct finding from the report regarding the pet market. Buyers are actively shifting their purchasing power toward cheaper imported variants to completely bypass high local costs. Local PET was sluggish and up €10, so what did buyers do? They pivoted. They saw the price difference and jumped on the imports. This isn't just a blip, it's an active shift in procurement strategy. Buyers are flat out refusing to absorb the logistical and production cost hikes of local producers when a cheaper, global alternative is sitting right there. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to really challenge your procurement strategy. In a landscape heavily defined by weak, dull demand, how long will local European producers actually be able to fight this import advantage? If imports can actively drive down EVA and completely undercut local PET sales, this artificial propping up of prices we're seeing elsewhere, it might just be living on borrowed time. Thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive into the polymer market. Definitely keep these dynamics in mind as you strategize your next moves.